So, today on the first episode of the new Future podcast, we have none other than the Grandmaster of Flips, the buff but not bald, and the curator of your soul, Anatoly. Welcome, sir.
It's the best intro I've had in a podcast. Thanks for having me.
Well, they're all aptly named, that's for sure. Anybody listening to this, if you haven't already, check out some of Anatoly's recent podcasts on Lightspeed and Unlayered. He breaks down a lot of good stuff. So we're going to try to avoid any of that overlap and maybe ask some new questions. All right. So, anyways, I know you've talked about your childhood a lot and those lessons from moving to America at a young age, and I kind of was curious if maybe you could take a moment to break down like maybe a pivotal moment that happened in like your teens, your 20s, 30s, and 40s, just to help kind of like understand you and how you've kind of turned into the man you are now.
Man, pivotal moments. We had this gym class that was like the in high school or the pre even before high school. This was middle school, and they were like doing like lame stuff, and the teacher said, "Well, if you don't want to do it, you can just run laps." And I just started running laps, and I like loved it. It's just like never clicked to me that you can enjoy like running in a loop like indefinitely forever. And you like, and then I was like, oh man, this is like enjoyable. I got into the zone, like I think a lot of runners would appreciate like the zone that you feel when you're running and you're just kind of like moving one step at a time and like thinking about like you're not even thinking about efficiency, but your body is like trying to become more and more efficient at this. It just like feels great, right? It's very kind of relaxing. Um, that was probably my first kind of eureka moment about physical activity in sports that I think was very, it had a lot of impact on my life.
I love that. The bluff, but then like childhood innocence, like,
Yeah,
yeah, okay. See you later.
yeah, yeah. And I ended up playing soccer in high school. We had a pretty good team, and I was like at the bottom, I think, of the skill level, but our team like was really good. So I've had the experience of understanding that it's really good to be on a team where you're not the best, but you're kind of like a little struggling to be on the team. It's actually like that was another moment for me, like where I saw my skill level just improve dramatically playing with better people that I was just barely hanging on with. So like that's those were also kind of, I think, like teachable moments.
Those
Um,
are good moments to have in your early teens. My
yeah,
goodness. Okay, what about
and
in your 20s?
college, I was like a lazy high school student. When I got to college, I like took on too many classes, and I had to basically, I didn't know what I wanted to do. Was it chemistry and genetic engineering, bio stuff, or computer science? And the labs were so boring and so like long and like detail oriented that I just did really badly in all those classes, and computer science won out. It was not I don't know, it was like a teachable moment in the sense that, but that had impact on like my trajectory of my life.
Yeah, and thank goodness it did.
Yeah.
Let's go. Okay, what about in your 30s? I mean, you had kids, so that's obviously going to be pivotal. And so it would be understanding if that was one, but I'm curious.
So having a partner that you're like really like excited to have kids with, you're like hit that stage, means you've kind of your brains start melting, you're kind of becoming a single organism, your family, like you're surrendering to it. It's a weird experience, but it's like all the cheesy stuff that all the speeches give the people give at your wedding about like marriage and all the stuff, and it gets better with time. It's all true. Like you just don't understand it because your brain has to change. It's a weird thing. And my partner in my 30s, we moved to San Francisco for kind of her to switch her career to tech, and she like ran a bunch of small businesses and was like a really really good negotiator, and she quickly passed me at her career trajectory.
I did not know that. That's gold.
So that was something that I learned very quickly watching her like navigate the San Francisco very competitive tech career scene versus San Diego, where I was like kind of and I was an IC, which means an individual contributor, like on this very long and boring but self-satisfying path. You just code, you're deep in the code, nobody bothers you, and you
Mm-hmm.
get to build complex stuff. And every 6 months, you're like, "Hey, look, I did this." And they're like, "Great, we'll ship it." But there is like a whole other side to like actually progressing in your career, especially in Silicon Valley, where you have like a dozen companies all competing for top talent. And because she did well, I was actually like felt a lot safer going doing a startup, like in terms of like, because I don't know, I have immigrant parents, right? Like my expectations are that I'm gonna support them and stuff, right? And taking like 3 4 years off from like a very lucrative career, right, as
Mm.
a engineer is like a huge risk and stuff. I talk to my parents who are Soviet immigrants. The stories they tell me are like real trauma. And in retrospect, when I look, okay, I'm dealing with like basically like it's not even like 80s communism level like inconveniences. It's I am blessed where I can hit a button and like somebody will bring me food within 15 minutes.
Man, so true. So true. I've heard you talk on recent podcasts about your desire to seek stress and risk taking. And I'm kind of curious, like, do you still have fear and angst leading into these things? And like, and what do you do to deal with it?
Yeah,
Meditation or
this is the weird part is like I actually discovered this for sports. So I played this game called underwater hockey. People have heard me talk about it, and you basically like you can Google it. It's as weird as any other sport, but part of it is that you hold your breath underwater, and you swim, you hold your breath, you have a stick about a foot long, and a puck that's at the bottom, you have fins, and it's fun. Um, but like part of it is the training, and you do these exercises where like you swim underwater, length of the pool, and then swim back and do like 4 laps. It's called 100, and you do it on a time. And let's say you go every 2 minutes and 15 seconds, you want to finish it in about a minute and like 5 to a minute to 10. So then you have rest until 2:15, and you do 7 of these in a row. And this is called the 7FU, the full under. Just and this is part of the task to get on the world's team. And you train for it and you prepare for it, and it's in the moment, it's like you think you're gonna die and drown, but you're just mentally have to go through it. And leading up to it, I'm terrified. And I don't know why. I just, for the same thing with like, I've done a couple Ironman. I'm by far not the fastest. I'm like mediocre Ironman. So that's like 13 hours. The pros do it in like sub 8 or something crazy. And I trained for it, and still I'm like, why did I sign up for this? It's gonna be a disaster. I'm gonna die. And this I can feel the stress, but I like for whatever reason I seek those things that will push me through the grinder. I don't know why. There's something about it like being a moth to a flame. I noticed, but because of that, I tend to like overthink anything new that I'm doing, and like I'm very cautious about like starting a new activity and like trying to get track, like trying to understand the track and stuff. I need like a lot of repeats, and then like I kind of can take a bit more risk. So I don't know. I don't know what that means about like being a founder or not. I think a lot of founders are actually have those kind of experiences where they're maybe are bored, like without the risk and like kind of the stress. It really focuses everything. What do I need to do to survive this? Like
Yeah, truth.
it prunes your decision tree, like you're just focused on that one thing. What is it that I need to do?
I love that. Have you ever heard of the term eustress? Like EU stress, one word?
No.
You probably love it. So EU, like stress. The EU for the eustress is euphoria, and so eustress is the feeling. It leads to the feeling of euphoria after a stressful event. So once you've done something you were like terrified of, afterwards you're like, Man, I'm so pumped right now. Can't believe I did that. That's
Yeah.
like eustrous.
Yeah.
Makes a lot of
Yeah.
sense. Nice.
So I'm not that kind of a thrill seeker that I want to bungee jump or skydive. It's more like
We can't all be Zane.
I yeah, yeah. I have no desire to like do that like kind of thing or because it's more that like yeah, I will start a startup and be like this is stressful. It's really stressful and it'll every day for like for years, right? But I don't think I have no desire to skydive or whatever.
Yeah.
Just for the thrill of like jumping out of a plane.
I may not have started a startup, but I align with you in that one. All right, and a little transition towards Solana. You kind of once told me about an analogy you had for tires and like what you learned with Qualcomm that helped you for making sure to tighten down the nuts that kind of make up a project before moving forward. You care to break that down a little?
Yeah, when you're if you're like building a really complex system, you don't know how it's gonna work until you actually build it and run it because there's just too many variables and too many things to test. You do your best, but you're kind of like just the space is too big. And the analogy that I use is like putting on the tires in a car. You like get the nuts on like a little loose, and then you tighten each one a little bit at a time to make sure that the wheel is on straight. And this is this kind of incremental process of tightening it on. The part that you want to get right is it is a wheel. So that's often like kind of I'd say if you can get like the big parts, the big broad strokes of the design and stuff right, you can fix a lot of stuff incrementally in the future. But oftentimes, like I think a lot of big software projects fail because they kind of over design and over I guess they optimize things kind of in a way that kind of boxes them in into a specific spot. And that's like just takes a bit of intuition and kind of gut check to avoid. You can't always like be perfect at it. Like I think there's enough technical debt in Solana that I wish we could have done some things differently, but none of it is like unfixable. It's just like, oh man, this is going to take us 6 months to,
Interesting.
to fix versus like something that I wish we did right away.
That's fair. Was mobile something you always sort of wanted to build a blockchain to optimize for?
Yeah, like I was a kernel like one of the kernel engineers in Brew. This was this OS that ran on like every flip phone in the world,
Hmm.
or most of them. And at that time, we had this like belief, man, people are gonna have handheld computers, and people thought we were crazy. The number one thing that people used their phones for was voice, and after that was downloading ringtones. So ringtones were like hundreds of millions of dollars per year size market. So it was like small relative to mobile today, but big enough to where it was a thing. But that's really like nobody really downloaded apps. The big breakthrough I think was like 2006 or 5. This game called Jam Dad Bowling. We can play bowling and like your thing. Again, like this is a cheesy like flip phone, right? With the
Oh yeah.
it didn't even have a real browser, and you have this bowling app you can play. They had like 2 million downloads. So that was like the first moment where people were like downloading apps and stuff. And then like what's insane is 6 months later, the iPhone, or about a year later, the iPhone came out. So you kind of saw like,
Interesting.
okay, we got it to work. Like, and you think that the incremental step is going to be, a more fun game on the flip phone. No, it's just the whole industry changed and like took off because the platform was completely reimagined. That was pretty cool to witness.
Interesting. I'm curious on the mobile phone front. I mean, I love the break the duopoly narrative, the meme. Totally here for it. I'm curious if like, and you might not even be able to say, has any manufacturers reached out to you? Like, I want like, how far do you think we are away from mobile phones as we know them having cryptography embedded? Like, let's just say like a standard wallet,
so they
Apple Wallet.
so they already have all the cryptography in there. You can do stuff like passkeys and things like that work. There's challenges because I think what would need to happen is actually like these companies would need to kind of embrace crypto, and it's hard for their because it's competing with their business models. Like Apple wants money off payments; they want 30% of every digital payment on their platform, and it's fine for them to run that business model. Like they built this awesome distribution channel, they should take advantage of it. But if you have like cryptography and that enables like this very ease of use of transferring assets, means that it means digital content is transferable, and that just doesn't work like with Apple, right? Like if Tensor has a $10,000 NFT, they can't sell it for $13,000 in the iOS App Store. They can't eat the $3,000 like tax like themselves because they don't own that NFT, right? And the way that the Apple Store works is I am a content creator. I can create infinite supply of this content, right? And then I charge people in the App Store X amount of dollars to consume it. They don't care if you call it owning the content or renting it, but effectively you get a license to use that content on that one device. You don't own it.
Mm-hmm.
And that license is effectively a rent, right? And you pay the creator, and the creator can create infinite amount of these things. They're not transferable. So it's more like broadcast, like radio, right? It is very much more like broadcast radio versus like buying a CD that you can send to your friends. Um, so Apple can make money off that broadcast part, but it's hard for them to make money if you can then transfer used CDs and you don't lose the quality of the content. So I think there's going to be resistance there for a while. The technology is already there. So we'll
Mm-hmm.
see what happens. So, but that's the opportunity, right? Like I think when people talk about crypto disrupting the banks and finance, these are financial institutions that are competitive, that have like their profit is measured, their fees are measured in bips, which is like a
Yeah.
hundred, which is
Most people are like, "What's a
one
bip?"
hundredth of a percent. What's a bip? It's 100th of a percent. This
That's
is
a good
what
point,
fine.
actually.
Yeah, Apple and Google take 20 to 30%. I
It's
think
like,
that's a harder to disrupt, but bigger opportunity. And I think because the profit margin is so big, I think actually there's like a slight chance, but it's a small chance, right? The way I think of it is like Google and like between Samsung and Apple, there's 6 billion device sales. We've had 20,000, so and then like 120,000 pre-orders or something. So our odds are like 140,000 out of 6 billion.
attack the
That's how
duopoly.
I think of it. Yeah,
It's
which is it's not zero.
and I mean, like, there's no failing here. It's kind of like you said, you got to be willing to take the chances, and it's like
Yeah,
doing what
but
you're doing
but I
is
think it's less than a bip.
yeah, less than a.
It's not zero, but it's 0.2 bips.
I like the odds. That's good.
Yeah.
All right. Speaking of mobile, you were saying in the Unlayered pod, you were talking about DPIN and how you love it, and I love it too. Like my Saga phone is like you got Hive Mapper on there, I got Grass on there, Synesys One, like it's my like little DPIN unit. And you mentioned like trying to like maybe build that into the stack. Can you talk about that at all?
Yeah, I think like hardware is a pain, so like it would be awesome like if we can get quality enough camera and like kind of Wi-Fi and GPS improvements in the device, which are non-standard. This is why Hive Mapper had to build their own. So then all of a sudden they have 120,000 like units out there that anyone can use, right?
Mm,
As a dual purpose device, one the phone, but also as the dash cam. So especially like people that are driving around all day, they can just pop this in right into their dash, and it starts recording, and it's can give them map data at the same time.
dude, yeah.
That would be really cool.
Oh my
So like
god.
stuff like that, I think would be awesome. Not like this is taking some product work, but like, and
Yeah.
we're trying to figure out if that's possible. So my dream for this device is that does all the edit. It has like an awesome app store with digital content, NFTs, whatever. But also, it's a deepen device, right? It's a platform for deepen projects to go bootstrap their like initial hardware. It can either work as a sensor, right? So for like Helium Mobile, it can be a sensor that they get data and basically can monitor reliability of all the towers that they're putting up with the sensor. People can collect tokens for that, or it can be an active one where Hive Mapper is actually using the device to collect and like create the environment. Like
Very strong. And like that's the kind of thing that, like we talked about the 6 billion and the bit percentage of Saga phone. It's like nobody really most people don't know that there's an option. And the narrative of like buy this phone and it comes pre-installed with these dApps and they help earn you money. You're providing a service back to these networks and protocols and you're earning money because of it. Like that's a pretty compelling narrative that just normal people just don't know exists. Like I tried to onboard some friends in Canada to Hive Mapper. I was like, do you drive a lot up and down? Can I send you these devices and will you download this stuff? And like, Mike, have you been hacked? Like, they're like, what was the favorite moment of in our 20s? Like something like that. But yeah,
is this a deep fake?
yeah, yeah. You want my address and social insurance number? But yeah, so no, I think like the idea of building this into the mobile phone is super powerful, and I really, really like it. You made a comment the other day about block space in Solana, and like, should we open it versus risking more downtime? I'm curious. Like, you must be of the opinion, yes, we should.
This is the my stress-seeking side talking.
Yeah.
Luckily, people don't do what I say; they will hear me out. And there's a lot of very smart, very capable engineers, and it's multiple different teams. So, but everyone, what's cool about Solana is it's not the the Solana alignment is like, yes, let's increase block space. The answer is always yes. The
Nice.
question is how fast and how do we do it? So the really fast way would be to just blindly increase it on mainnet, and that could be risky, but it's better to test it. So I think that the more kind of safer way is the next release, which is going to be 119, should be tested with like a 25% increased block space,
Oh
and then
wow.
it goes through the whole release cycle. People stress test it or whatever, and then we just start doing that every release, 120, 25% on top. And that should be manageable, right? If some bug pops up where there's a bit of like something, why it's hard to increase block space is because these systems are trying to reliably predict how long any computation will take, and these computations, while like seem to be all just purely doing software and moving bits around, because they still run on hardware, right? They still hit memory, they still deal with random stuff. You just can never be perfect. And the hardware is different from machine to machine. So you don't know if a single transaction on your computer takes 2 milliseconds is going to take 5 milliseconds somewhere else, or like 1 millisecond in another computer. So the system, like the network, has to pick these parameters such that the vast majority of computers can safely run a block within 400 milliseconds. Some may do it faster, some may do it slower, but we want, more than the super majority, probably like close to 95% to run it in that safely. So if you start increasing block space and you've miscalculated the
Mm.
speed of something to then that starts accumulating those effects, it could blow up and you start seeing some machines fall behind. And that could eventually lead to an outage. Or if there's a really, really bad bug where things like resources are really mispriced, that could be much more exacerbated. So that's really kind of the reason why it can't just be instant, but it's not a computer science problem. It's just an engineering problem. So you can increase it in the next release, stress test it, test, the hell out of it, get app developers to go run stuff that we wouldn't expect, see what happens. If you find something that breaks the network, you fix it, and yada yada yada. Right? It's now a process. So that's basically, I think, kind of the right way to do it. But it was good to see the poll because I think part of it is like I want people that are yelling at me why is the black space increased to see that there's other people that are not yelling who also have a voice that want the network to move in the way that it's moving.
Yes. I voted yes for what it's worth.
So part of like this is what's weird is like everything's open source.
Yeah.
So there isn't like any single decision maker. There's kind of this weird ball of consensus between everyone that's working on the network, between the app developers, the core devs and stuff like that. That's kind of moving in the same direction. But you could like if you really, really wanted to increase the block space by 4x, go reconfigure a testnet with that much on your computers, start stress testing the hell out of it and be like, look guys, it's stable, we can just do it tomorrow. And like show that to the community, and then basically the app developers that want it will be like, look, it's safe. Go enable it next week. They'll start yelling, and you'll start actually getting a bigger and bigger voice in that camp. And very quickly, you'll actually like, if you're right and it's safe and right, there's no issues. That it'll happen. What we're really constrained on are like not like software engineering or anything like that. It's people like that can take that bet and go do the work and then show, look, this is safe. Like effectively we're constrained by like I don't know, what do you want to call this? Like people that want to take action versus just like talking. We need more like hands-on activists that are like very, very much have conviction about that they're right and are willing to do the work to show it. That's really, I think, the biggest constraint.
That's sort of like that's perfect segue into what I wanted to ask next. You must have a sense of pride around Ansa and Colosseum because like that's sort of what Ansa is. That's guys saying like, you know what, let's step aside, let's start our own project and push the limits.
Yeah, this has been, I don't know why, like this I don't even think Ethereum I mean, Ethereum had a bunch of people exit and start their own companies, like Leave, Consensus, and Ethereum Foundation. And I think this is not like forced. It's just the best people that you want to hire are the ones that are willing to go do that. As soon as they like, they get bit by that dog, they're like, this is the thing that I figured it out. I'm gonna go build it. My attitude internally has always been like, I will do whatever I can to help you go start your next business. Just
Same.
come work for me. You'll learn like everything that you need to do this and give them hard projects. So Maddie built the entire um, hackathon from the ground up. He did the first one, like did like all the developer acquisition strategy and like getting judges and all this shit, and like he drove it. It's his baby. And eventually it was like, I see a much bigger vision for this. Like, awesome. Let's go do this. Go like build Colosseum.
Same.
Um, which is really, really cool to see. Like, and I think that at some, if crypto is going to be as big as I think it is, like if we're going to see 10, a trillion stable coins within 5 years and like 10 trillion in 10 years, like Coliseum could be bigger than YC because it's now the best onboarding
Wow.
tool to get early stage startups in a competitive environment to ship and build a product
Wow.
very, very quickly and like get it to market. And like that's kind of like his big vision for that is that like this could be a bigger, better version of IC because there's less it's more objective, it's competitive, and like you actually get to see the results of all these people's work in a very, very short amount of time.
That's amazing. Yeah, I made a profile on the arena and posted to it last week, and I was like, this is the really nice user interface, very slick. It ticks a lot of boxes, and it's just current. It's going to be there all the time. It's its own machine now. That's awesome. Um, Ansa and Coliseum. When you initially When you and Raj co-founded Solana and you're looking at the future, were these the directions that you were hoping for? I know you mentioned like you were telling people like, come here and I'll help you start your own thing. Or is it something you couldn't even have
No,
forecasted?
yeah, we couldn't really like. It's all driven by the individual people that want to do it. Like, it's really, really hard to force it because like it's like funding a startup. Finding a CEO to do something is like funding a startup. Like, you got to find somebody really talented that's really good and driven and has a vision. And um, the reason why I think like Silicon Valley people like repeat the vision part so much, uh, it seemed like silly to me, like as an engineer, but you realize like 4 or 5 years into building something is like you need to have some magical thing on the horizon to keep you like going every day. If all you're optimizing for is like the thing that's like the next month, just make this release or whatever, you will give up. Like, there's just like such a grind that you need to like construct this like cathedral that is on the horizon that you can barely see, so you can like keep crawling through the desert. Otherwise, like, people will give up. This is why I think vision part is so critical, and you can't force it. It's got to be like that one person that they're driven by this one thing, and they will carry it through.
Amazing. Does it trip you to look inside your cathedral and see like the long list of protocols that have been built and the impressive founders that are sitting inside of it, all building on top of the Solana ecosystem?
Yeah, these last couple like Breakpoint and other events, it's been very humbling to see people that are young, smart, right? Like, awesome engineers, as good as me in like every measurable way, just come into the space and with like so much energy and like choose to build on Solana and like succeed and build awesome products. It's all that's been like the kind of the part that I feel like reflects the success the most, is like that's more important than I think, and like more long term than anything else.
That's amazing. I'm curious if you just came into the ecosystem and it wasn't your Solana, have you ever given thought to like what app you would be building? Like what would you build on Solana?
Duopoly Destroyer. I'm trying to, right? I am
Oh
trying to
my
trying to
god.
do
Dude,
it.
you should 100. There needs to be a game that's like crypto mobile only. Like obviously can't be played
Well,
on Android. Break the duopoly. Or like you can
I
play it
mean,
on Apple and Android, but it's severely limited.
I just played an awesome game built by Solana OG called Life Forms.
Okay.
It's a shooter. Do you play shooters?
I
Um,
used to,
I just
not near as much.
I just play tested. It's awesome. I had a lot of fun. It's like third person view with like aliens and like psychedelics and weird weapons and like
Sweet.
bizarro landscapes. It was fun playing it. So I'm not a game designer. Like, my like the reason why we're building mobile is kind of to eat our own dog food. Like, we did we sold it through the Shopify USDC like plugin and see how it worked. And that was a great experience. I can tell people, look, crypto is for payments. We did half of our sales went through that plugin without any incentives, and it saved us 2% on fees. That's at like 60 million sales, so it's 30 mil. That's 2%, 600K. That's people's salaries, right? That's more
Damn.
people we can hire.
Damn.
We ship NFTs in this device, so we have to eat our own dog food with the NFT stack, and like we know exactly where. Like, it's I think it's pretty important to, as a platform builder, to have like also an app that you're building that's your own, that you actually are not like a test application or like a dummy one, but like one that you feel like could succeed. Forces you to kind of like be both the developer and the platform engineer. Wish I
I
could build games because I'm a gamer. Like, man, I sometimes stay up too late these days playing Helldiver. But like, yeah, I wish I could build games.
Yeah, a lot of things I wish I could do. Last summer though, on the Saga phone, like speaking of the experience, like I did the Clanosaur Colossano's mint from within the DApp store. There needs to be more of that stuff because like that.
Yeah,
Honestly, I remember I was driving to Whistler to go hiking or biking and like pulled over and was like, using my phone to do the mint, and it was so smooth because it was just like I saw the window in real time, then it closed, and like I signed the transaction with my finger, and it was like, "You won!" And I was like, "Yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah." It was. I was like,
That's awesome. Yeah,
"This is
like
shit."
people would take like their computers to the club for an NFT mint, like during the 21 craze, which I thought was pretty funny.
That's that Wojak meme where he's standing at the in the side, but he's
Yeah,
got his laptop. They don't
yeah,
know. They don't know this
yeah.
mint. Speaking of killer app ideas, you mentioned in the recent podcast about the moonwalk, and when they can build it for snowboarding. I was like, that would be top
Yeah,
notch.
I would definitely use that application if there was basically a snowboard tracker
Yeah,
that gave you snowboard to earn.
yeah,
I would never I would never sell. Why would you ever sell those?
yeah,
Those are your vertical feet.
dude, vertical feet, and then like competition days. Like who does the most
Yeah,
vertical?
yeah.
Yeah, for sure. That would be. I imagine that's going to come out. It has to come out. I'm curious if you have any thought around like sports and crypto, and if there's like a healthy level of overlap, or is there such thing as just like too much tracking?
I go like I'm not I like to track in bursts. Like I will get like into some new thing that collects data, and then I'll use it for like a couple of weeks and kind of get a sense of what it's teaching, and then I'll stop. And I don't know if those, it's just fun for like, I think it's too hard to like live my life around like the like data too much, but it is fun to get like that level of introspection and see what you're doing and how you're doing. I don't think I think the problem with the earn narratives is that like I don't know how long they can last beyond kind of the initial onboarding of users, but maybe that's enough, right? If you can like bootstrap your application and get to millions of users, and in the process they get fitter, it's great,
Yeah,
right?
it's like if meme coins have kind of taught me anything, it's that with crypto, anything is possible. You can prescribe value to freaking anything because a JPEG of a dog is market cap of whatever it is. So if it's mimetically funny and they can maybe make an app work, maybe it can work. Who knows? But it's a little too philosophical. Nice. This is a fun question before we start wrapping this up. Should modern companies have meme departments? Does Solana have a meme department?
No. I don't I I would say no. You can't force this. It would like it's it's like how do we like take something that people are having fun with and then package it up
Yeah,
and commercialize
yeah.
it until it's no longer fun?
I mean, we
Yeah,
laugh
I would.
because it's what we're good at. But man, I bet you there are serious companies out there that are like, we got to get at these Zoomers. They really like their TikTok and their memes. We got to go after that market.
Yeah, I think that would be a huge mistake unless, I don't know. There could be some brands that could pull it off, but it's got to be already kind of a niche, weird brand, you know?
Man,
I
you
mean,
imagine
branding
putting that
is
on
a
the
meme,
resume.
right? Like, yeah, like creating a brand is a meme, right? You're just trying to sell a product through that. It's a skill. I don't know. I think it'd be hard to keep that, like whatever it is you're selling as part of a meme coin, because a meme coin is it's just so it's so random and weird.
It's truly hit or miss. Beautiful.
Yeah.
All right. The one thing I like to ask my guests before they depart is what is the one thing that's helped kept you sane throughout the last couple of years with Solana going under $10? Whether it's touching grass, snowboarding the kids, what's your thing?
Um, Kids, spending time with the kids, and then I would say pick some sport. So weightlifting has been the thing I've been doing mostly recently because I kind of blew out my knees running, which has been sad, depressing. It took me like 2 years of not running to figure out that there's other things that I could enjoy with the same way, and like it happens to be weightlifting, and that's pretty cool. So yeah, find a sport that gets you into the zone,
So
and
true.
yeah, figure out how to unplug and spend time with family.
I love that.
Awesome.
Yeah. Well,
Deadlift
sir,
competition next time, right?
that's it, man. Absolutely. Wide grip sumo stance. Okay. Take it easy, sir. Thanks for coming on.